To the extent we have media interests in this here present, and also through the streaming apparatus, we appreciate that very much as well, to help us get the word out. It's probably one of the most important things I've seen as a public servant is the role the media plays in effect getting gigantic public service announcements out, even though this is news, not a public service announcement, but it reaches people in that way oftentimes. We saw that during COVID, and who knows where we would be today without that kind of help. I also want to thank, before I forget, Dr. Lisa Andrew. I'll introduce her shortly, President and CEO of the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. Dr. Alita MacArthur, Superintendent of Mount Pleasant Elementary School District. Glenn Vanderzee, Superintendent of the Eastside Union High School District. Natalie Enriquez Mendoza, an 8th grader who's here to testify about this bill, and Laura Landeros, a mother of 3 who's very active in the school district, and then all the folks who've been working hard to put this bill together and to put today together. Beth Willon, of course, who is a consummate professional in terms of getting us out here to do this, what we're doing right now, and then Ashante from my office. Where are you? Raise your hand, please. This is basically the person who wrote the bill, has been working on it for a long time. It's not something that just came up a week or two ago or a month or two ago. It's required an awful lot of work. So now let's hear about the bill, SB 743. It's a bill that will fix longstanding inequalities in California's public schools, particularly in terms of its funding. For too long, where a child lives has determined how much funding the school receives. A long time being all the way back to about 1978, 1979, when Prop 13 took effect. This bill doesn't change Prop 13. I want to make that very clear right at the outset. But it does ensure that all students, no matter their zip code, no matter their neighborhood location, no matter how those old formulas were constructed back then in the late 1970s, that all students have access to the same quality of education. So SB 743 works like this. It creates an Education Equalization Account. Think of a separate, segregated account, much like a reserve account, to provide extra funding to school districts that receive less money due to outdated property tax rules regarding education funding, again, that have been around for 45 years. That separate account under this formula will build up and build up and build up principal. It will be part of our investment pool, and the dividends, the earnings off that investment pool, will be dedicated solely to public education equalization. No other use. And I will say right there, major footnote, with success with this bill, and we're moving it through the committee process now, we will come back to the ballot with a constitutional amendment to lock this in so the legislature can never change it or raid those funds. So right now, some districts get significantly more funding, especially if you look at it on a per student basis, because of local property tax formulas. Let me take that back. Statewide property tax formulas that were adopted over 40 years ago that took a snapshot of what property values were at that time. That's not fair 45 years later. To give you just one isolated example, especially with local reporters here that know the lay of the land, the Silver Creek Country Club was built far more recently than 45 years ago. It was barren hillsides at the time Prop 13 took place and these formulas were established. It was viewed by the state as not generating significant property taxes toward public education at that time. Today it feeds into Silver Creek High School, part of the Eastside Union High School District. And Eastside Union High School District is funded significantly less in terms of per pupil revenue because of those 45-year-old formulas that treated that piece of property as if it was raw land. And that's something that we can't change on a standalone basis. We have to come in and augment these schools, and we have to do it the way I'm describing. So SB 743 ensures that no existing funding is reduced. Instead, future increases in education funding will be used to close the gap and give every student, regardless of where they live, a fair opportunity to succeed. The initiative uses state general funds in surplus years. And despite last year or the year before, we have plenty of surplus years. In those surplus years, this account, this equalization account, has a formula attached to it that will automatically deposit significant dollars into that account. And that will ensure that schools don't lose money that they already count on. Meaning, if you're not a non-basic aid school, if you're not a school that's receiving less funding, if you're already at the top of the heap, nobody's taking that money away. This isn't an equalization that works by robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's not how this works. We're adding money to public education through general fund surpluses that frankly should have been dedicated to this purpose years and years ago so that we didn't get into the situation that we're in now. And you'll hear more about that, I think, from some of the other speakers in terms of what those numbers are really like. The outcomes that we'll get when you talk about more funding, smaller class sizes, better retention and attraction of teachers, perhaps a more rigorous curriculum because that can be afforded. The example I like to call upon, and I think it's real, is that some kids in some districts have robotics with real robots, and some are trying to fake their way through it because of the lack of resources in the school with cardboard cutouts, so to speak. That goes away when you start to equalize the funding for the schools. And I think schools will be safer as well. Safety also requires resources. It'll help boost graduation rates, improve test scores, lower suspension and expulsion rates, especially for students in underserved communities. I use the example of the Silver Creek Country Club. I wouldn't call that an underserved community, but these formulas were pretty random in terms of their impact today. How many of these districts are already struggling from the indices of redlining and other government decisions, and now on top of that are receiving less funding per pupil than they should be. It's exacerbating problems that we have caused ourselves. A child's zip code should never determine their worth in the classroom. It still does. Palo Alto schools spend nearly $30,000 per student. At this time of the day, that's what, a 20-minute drive? Milpitas, $16,500. I know we have school board members here from Milpitas. They can vouch for that. Students across California started at a disadvantage in those schools through no fault of their own. I just said that to one of our school board members, present council member David Cohen. He talked about how Barry S. has been disadvantaged like that for years, that school district. And I looked at him and I said, through no fault of your own. And certainly through no fault of the families and the students. So it's time to fix this unfair funding formula. It was time decades ago. It's certainly time now. And by doing that, every student, regardless of the district they're in, their background, the house they live in, the neighborhood they live in, can thrive. And the data is clear. All the answers aren't about spending, but spending more per student does lead to better outcomes. And spending equivalent amounts per student will lead to just outcomes. Research shows that even $1,000 per student as an increase over a 3-year period can raise test scores by a grade level, improve graduation rates, and reduce negative indicators like suspensions. So this bill is about fairness, opportunity, giving every student the resources they need to succeed, long overdue, and no child should be at a disadvantage simply because of where their parents chose to live. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Lisa Andrew, President and CEO of Silicon Valley Education Foundation. Thank you.
All right. Before I begin, I must give a heartfelt thank you to Senator Cortese. While being a long-standing advocate for education, his recent work with us on changing how the state of California funds its school districts is both inspiring and courageous. I am forever grateful. Thank you, Dave. All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. Today marks the beginning of our journey to fundamentally change how education is funded in the state of California. As the fifth largest economy in the world, California enjoys the privilege of choosing what to invest in. Today, I hope you decide to join our coalition to work alongside legislators like Senator Cortese in convincing California to choose to invest in its children. Today, we can work to move California from the rank of 21st in the nation in funding education to at least the top 5. So where to start? How about working with us to get SB 743 passed? Education is the foundation of opportunity, the cornerstone of progress, and the most powerful tool for economic and social mobility. However, we cannot truly fulfill its promise until we address the systemic challenges that persist in our schools. Today, we gather to discuss the critical role of educational policy in shaping our education systems and to explore pathways to systemic change that ensure every student, regardless of their zip code, receives a high-quality education. Every student in the state of California is, and should be, held to standards and expectations. Every teacher is, and should be, held to creating learning environments where all students can thrive. But it's not enough to simply treat every student the same, expect every teacher to provide the same. We must ensure that every student and teacher receive the same resources and support so that they can succeed. In our state, school funded is determined by property taxes, as mentioned by Senator Cortese. But as these illustrated displays show you, districts with higher property values receive significantly more per student funding per year than lower income school districts. So the result? A system where outcomes can be predicted based on geography. In some cases, districts just 5 miles apart see a funding difference of over $13,000 per student per year. And as Senator Cortese said, we know that funding is not the secret ingredient to student success. However, the data is clear. More funding leads to better outcomes. Districts in higher property value areas can afford that modern technology, attract and retain teachers, offer extensive professional development, upgrade facilities, and provide supports that students so desperately need. We simply cannot expect the same result in each school district when the state of California invests so differently based on location. And yet, despite this knowledge, California's current funding model, the local control funding formula, continues to create stark disparities. Providing every school district with an equal base amount ensures every student has the opportunity to graduate high school, enter the Silicon Valley workforce, and obtain economic mobility. All vital stepping stones to a thriving community, state, and nation. It is time for us to be courageous. We must be willing to dismantle and rebuild aspects of our education system to ensure better outcomes for all students. Today, we stand together as an education coalition that will not be silenced until every student has access and opportunity to succeed. SB 743, the Education Equalization Act, provides additional funding to school districts who receive lower amounts of per student funding and begins the crucial conversation of a student's home address not determining how much their education is worth. Together we can create a future where strong policies drive systemic change. We can build an education system that reflects our values, invests in the potential of every student. I invite each of you to join our coalition and work alongside us to build awareness and magnify why legislation like SB 743 is needed. Let's work together to send a message to Sacramento that the privilege our state enjoys as the fifth largest economy should be extended to all of its children, no matter what zip code they call home. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Andrew, for your partnership every step of the way from the very beginning of the formation of this bill. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Alita MacArthur, Superintendent of the Mount Pleasant School District. Doctor.
Well, I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, paper. Good morning, and thank you for being here. Charlie Challenge. I am honored to speak on behalf of the students, teachers, and families about an issue that profoundly impacts our community: inequality in education funding. I am confident that we all agree that every student deserves every opportunity to succeed. However, the current funding disparities between school districts makes it incredibly difficult for students in lower income to thrive academically. Our students in our schools face significant challenges due to lower per-pupil funding compared to wealthier districts within the directly impact student achievement. The impact is clear. Studies from the National Bureau of Economics Research have shown that 10% increase in per-pupil spending lead to higher test scores, improved graduation rates, and greater lifetime earnings, especially in underserved communities. Yet, because of the California outdated school funding formula, our students receive less money than wealthier districts. A clear example of this funding disparity is teacher salaries. In wealthier districts, just 13 miles away, a starting teacher earns $96,000. A new teacher in Mount Pleasant earns $74,000. This gap makes it harder for our district to attract and retain qualified educators, leading to higher turnover and negatively impacting student learning. The reality is simple. More funding means more resources, smaller class sizes, better paid teachers, broader access to technology, mental health services, and enrichment programs that support student success. Now, districts like Mount Pleasant struggle to provide the same resources, and the effects are clear. Sadly, students in underfunded districts are left at a disadvantage through no fault of their own, like we have said. This is where the Education Equalization Endowment comes in. By creating a dedicated funding source to support students in districts like Mount Pleasant, this initiative will help level the playing field. It means more resources for teachers, better classroom materials, expanded academic support, and ultimately better outcomes for our students. By investing in all students, regardless of zip code, we invest in the future of our communities, our workforce, and our state. We must ensure that all students, no matter where they live, have the same opportunities to learn, grow, and fulfill their full potential. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. MacArthur. Next, the next person I want to call up, I want to give a slightly longer introduction. Amongst the school board members here is my wife, Patty, and I want to say something I probably never said at a press conference before. We don't talk about deliberations, votes, impending votes. We just don't, by design, have those conversations. She does her deliberations and voting, I do mine. And if we have a success or something later, of course, that gets mentioned. But the one time she asked me to meet with her superintendent was on this issue. And Glenn Vanderzee and I, the superintendent of the Eastside Union High School District, sat in his conference room for the better part of 2 hours, framing up essentially the framework for the bill that you're hearing about today. And Glenn has, of course, stayed with it along with Lisa, Andrew, and the others, to this point. But I like to give credit where credit's due, especially at the inception of ideas like this. Who came up with this? Well, we came up with it together. But Glenn, you've been a key part of all this and a partner every step of the way. So please come on up and give us a few comments, please.
That was really generous. Thank you for that. Hey, good morning, California. Our kids are in school right now. My name's Glenn Vanderzee. I'm the superintendent at East Side. That's 20,000 high school age students doing work right now for future success of California. Across our state, what do we want as districts? We want to welcome students as they are. We want to have the resources to know where their areas of growth are and where their strengths are. And we want the resources to be able to positively respond. For what? So they can be full participants in their classrooms, full participants in their schools, and full participants in Silicon Valley and across the state of California. And Californians have made good choices to help that happen. Standardized curriculum. You have standardized tests. You have entrance requirements to a UC and CSU system, which are standardized across the state of California, saying any student, if you want to be successful, this is the bar. Good for California. Californians has also made another choice. It's to say we've set the bar here, but we're not prepared to fund you and invest in you equally. My students at the East Side, 20,000, this year will be funded at $14,000 per student. And today, they're working in their classrooms, and they're supported by $14,000 annually, where students 20 minutes from here are funded at $26,000 per student. So I say to our students, yes, the bar is here. California has chosen to standardize that for all students. But we've also, as citizens, chosen to underinvest in a significant number of students across our state and significantly create a competitive disadvantage for students. Let me hit that again. Right around us, we have students that we've invested in at $14,000 per student annually, and 20 minutes away, $26,000 annually. Senator Cortese, Dr. Andrew, Dr. Arlene MacArthur have said it. The investment makes the difference. Californians, we can choose to end this. We can choose to not just set the bar equally across the state, but fund students and create the supports so that everybody has the resources necessary to be successful, to drive up our economy, to increase not taxes, but the tax base, to reduce the burden on city and county governments and taxes by needing additional services for undereducated students in the future. This is a choice we can do. Senate Bill 743 allows us to equalize the funding just as we've normed the expectations for performance. And we can do it by taking dollars away from no student, but adding extra dollars to those that need it most. It's right in front of us. There's a Senate bill. It's a clear plan. It takes money from no one. It adds to the students that we know need the supports. Historically, we have denied. We can change history by passing this bill and invest in students and give them the footing and the competitive advantage for themselves, their family, and to increase the prosperity and strength of the state of California. Let's get behind this. Let's do it. And let's create the change that our students, families, and our state needs now. Thank you very much.
Well, next up, most certainly is our most important speaker of the day, Natalie Enriquez Mendoza, an 8th grader at August Boger Middle School. And we're going to hear from Natalie as to what it's like being on the receiving end, or perhaps better said, the non-receiving end of this issue. Natalie, please come forward. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Henriquez Mendoza, and I'm an 8th grader from August Boger Middle School. Like many students right now, they're working hard in class or in after-school clubs, or in sports, or in any other activities our school offer every day. But the thing is, even with all our hard work, we don't always have the resources we need. This makes it harder for staff and students to succeed and do our best. If our school received equal funding, like other districts, we could expand the amazing programs we already have. I'm part of 2 after-school clubs, the Tech Challenge Club and the Girls Who Code Club, where I've learned to build devices and code games and websites. These clubs also help me connect with other people who have similar interests. But we don't always have the supplies we need. We have found ourselves sometimes, club members, having to use their own money to cover the gaps. I'm also part of the pilot college program through Evergreen Valley College. It's taught me about career paths and what steps I need to take for my future. With more funding, programs like this could grow and help even more students. Our middle school also offers electives like AVID, band, and leadership, and they have taught me how to be a better leader and teammate. But with more resources, we could add even more electives, let's say like robotics, and they can spark new interests or help us discover talents we didn't know we had. As I said, there's an elective called leadership. I am a leadership student, and as a leadership student, I help plan school events for parents and students like dances and rallies, but we often have to make our own decorations or figure out how to afford supplies from scratch. It's very stressful to plan something big for the school while also worrying about how we're going to pull it off. The same goes for field trips. We work hard to fundraise, but it can be very overwhelming and even disappointing if we don't raise enough. I'm also part of the track and field team, and right now we have to borrow Mount Pleasant High School's field. We walk across the street carrying all our gear, and it takes up a lot of time and it can be very tiring. We also have to train under rainy conditions. The funding could help us build our own track and field because we have the land. We just need the money. It can also help us replace old sports equipment, which we're often short on. In the end, equal funding will help our schools do even more for students like me. It will reduce stress, open up our opportunities, and help every student reach their full potential. Thank you.
The most important, no pressure, Ma. I think that was not only the most important, but the best so far, by far. Next, in our final speaker today, Laura Landeros, a mother of 3 who is very active in this school district. Let's hear from her.
Good morning. Let me see. Actually, this brings back memories. My oldest son started school over here at the Barbara Marlett Center, the Barbara Marlett Middle School, so it just is a warm place. So I did not intend to read off on my paper. These are my honest thoughts and facts about education system. I need to make sure that my message is heard as a parent and who has seen the direct impact of inadequate funding for students. This situation can't wait any longer. So one of the questions is, as a parent of a student who goes to school in a district is lacking resources, what does it mean, of course? So it's unfair. My child deserves the same opportunities as other children, just a few miles away. Yet the lack of resources holds them back. It breaks my heart to see them struggle, not because they lack talent or determination, but because they weren't given the same tools to succeed. Every child deserves a fair chance, access to quality education and up-to-date materials, and supportive learning environment. The fact that my child has to work twice as hard just to keep up isn't right. No parent should have to watch a child's potential be limited to circumstances beyond their control. The lack of resources and outdated technology have a direct, lasting impact on my child's education. We live in the Silicon Valley, a place known for innovation and progress, yet our schools are operating as if time stood still. My 2 stepdaughters went through the same system 27 years ago. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of loud, huh?
Just 30 seconds.
Okay, sure.
We haven't closed Reed Hill.
Thank you. Thank you. My stepdaughters went through the same system 27 years ago, and including my 3 sons. And I still have one now at August Boger, 7th grader, and I have seen nothing has changed. Meanwhile, schools just a few miles away have adapted, offering better courses, modern tools to prepare their students for the future. I sometimes get emotional when I think about it. This gap creates unfair disadvantage. My child isn't just missing on advanced courses or new technology. They're being denied the chance to compete on an equal playing field while the other students gain hands-on experience with cutting-edge tools. My child is stuck with outdated methods that fail to reflect the world they will enter after graduation. It's frustrating and disheartening to know that the potential is being limited because of where they live, determined by the zip codes. Every student deserves access to the best education possible, and it's time for real change. What is missing in our schools is opportunity, the kind that sparks curiosity, fuels passion, and prepares students for the future. Just a few miles away, students have access to courses in 3D design modeling, circuit board designs, sketching, codings 1 and 2 courses, and even aviation clubs. These are just extracurriculars that are pathways to careers, innovation, and love for learning. Meanwhile, our students are stuck in an outdated system that hasn't evolved in years, and I've seen that firsthand. They're missing out on hand-on experience that are making exciting and relevant. Schools should be places where students discover new interests, unlock their potential, but instead they're left without the tools they need to compete in an ever-changing world. We're not just lacking programs, we're lacking inspiration. Education should ignite a student's excitement, not feel like a chore. If other schools can offer these opportunities, why can't ours? Our students deserve the same chance to explore, create, and dream big. And we need the strength from our community to make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Ms. Landeros. And we are going to now turn to question and answers. But beforehand, I feel a little awkward that we haven't done acknowledgments. We can't introduce everyone, but I know Jim and Chris and Derek and some other school board members are here, including some from this district and the neighboring district. Can you just raise your hands if you're a school board member, so you're at least acknowledged, and we're not making you invisible. If you're an educator, teacher, or administrator, please also raise your hand. Okay, thank you. All right, and anyone who's here just as a community supporter, please raise your hand. Thank you. And that last category is going to be most important, because no matter what happens with this bill, it's our commitment to be on the ballot. I'm asking the legislature to put this on the ballot, which is going to require support from community members, community activists, folks like Ms. Landeros, students who are now in school who are going to grow right into that ballot measure. This isn't a campaign kickoff. We don't have a campaign. There's no campaign committee, but we need a constitutional amendment to lock this formula in so that we ultimately have to deal with this problem never again. That's the idea. With that, I'll open it up to questions and answers from anyone you want to talk to here. If you feel like you have a question that would benefit everyone to hear the response to, please speak up now. Otherwise, we'll just break up into one-on-ones. Obviously, there's a great spectrum of people to talk to here. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's it.